This is a demo for project 4B, the Forrest Gump assignment, where you're supposed to take a historical photograph and place yourself in it and make yourself blend in it as seamlessly as possible. So what I've done is, hopefully you can't see me in this picture, that's the whole point. But I've placed myself on the, this is the original photograph is the very famous photograph of the workers taking a lunch break in New York constructing a skyscraper. I think it's the Rockefeller building, and the reason I used this one is because I was looking for an easy out. I kind of didn't follow the instructions exactly because I just used a picture that I already had because I'm just doing this demo for technical purposes, and in the instructions I ask you to actually pose and even dress up if that is appropriate. I'm looking for extra effort and extra creativity. I am just trying to do this quickly, so I didn't follow my own instructions, and I actually did go ahead and use a picture that I already had. And you can see why I chose this picture if I was looking for an easy out, because clearly I was already sitting in a very easy pose to place myself in that photograph that I knew I had this picture, and I just, I took one look at the original, the historical photograph, and I was just like, okay, that's going to be easy to do, but that's not what I want for you, right? I want you to put more thought into it than that. So this original picture of me is somebody caught me taking a selfie when I was in Lucca, Italy last summer. We were out drawing. Plein air is what it's called when you're out drawing outdoors, and I was. Somebody had given me some tissue to kind of clean myself up with. I'd gotten really dirty because I was using pastels, and I was taking a picture of my dirty tissue there. And I actually kind of like the picture. I think it's funny. So this is, so I just had cut that out and then, of course, brought it into, this is the original picture right here. I made a copy of the background, by the way. I always just do that as a precaution. I think it's a good idea because I just want to have a version of that original that is untouched in case I mess up. Or whatever. So I'm always just kind of make a background copy just to be on the safe side. And so let's see, let me get my selection here. And what I did, of course, was I dragged it into the photograph, and what will probably happen is something similar to this. You're probably going to have a scale disparity. I do want you to photograph yourself with as many pixels as you can, which means you need to get in close, and you need to use as high a image quality as your camera will allow. It's better to try to take away quality than add quality, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Is we're kind of taking away quality because here we're using a high resolution digital camera, the high resolution photograph. Even if this was just a cell phone picture, it's still pretty good, right? And if you're looking at it, you're placing it in a completely different kind of photograph. This was a film photograph. It's probably a reproduction of a reproduction of a reproduction. I mean, this is just something I found on Google Images. I do want you to, use Google Images, and don't forget I showed you how to use that that tool where you can restrict it to the largest scale images. You don't want to go in there and get some super small, 300 by 500 pixel image if there's these perfectly good, 16, 17, 1800, 2000 pixel by whatever. And so I found the biggest one I could on this, which I think was about 2000 by 1800, something like that. I would have gone bigger if I could have. But nevertheless, I still came in there much bigger. And so I'm going to have to scale it down. Let's see. And I think I need to flip myself the other way. Okay, so let me do a transform real quick. Okay. And holding my shift key, scale it down. So I think the main thing you want to do when you're checking scale is not worry so much about height, but worry about the size of your head. Because those are probably fairly consistent from person to person. Now I'm going to be about the same size as these guys because I'm on the same perspective level with them. Now, if you're closer or farther away than some of the people in the picture you place yourself in, you're going to need to scale yourself accordingly, because the closer you are, the bigger you appear, the farther away you are, the smaller you appear. And so I'm just kind of comparing what I can, hands and the head. I still feel like I'm a little big. My hands look kind of big compared to them. Let's see. More or less, right? I think that's good enough. I thought it was really funny though. No, see, now I'm too short. I thought it was really funny because no matter what I did, no matter what I did to kind of try to make myself fit in with these guys, if my body height and my head and everything were about the same size, my legs still hung down like way lower, which I thought was kind of funny. But that's just me being a freak of nature. And also, people are taller now than they were. What would that be, about 80 years ago? People are getting taller, and so that's probably got a lot to do with it as well. But so there I am. Clearly not yet fitting in. There's a couple things I need to do. One, I need to convert it to black and white. That's going to be very easy. So use an adjustment layer. Okay, and you should have already read up on these and practiced them a little bit. If you haven't, you need to. The black and white layer, usually by default, it's going to give you a pretty good range. What it does is it breaks all of the light channels down and assigns a value to each color. So that your blues, of course, are going to be darker and your yellows are going to be lighter. And if you want to play around with contrast a little bit, you can. I usually just like to kind of go in with the dodge and burn tool and do it with a brush. That's up to you. Usually what I find with people, the two channels that make the biggest difference are the red and the yellow. And I am going to cancel that and throw it in the trash and do it again, right? Because yes, I want to delete that layer mask. Whoops, and I want to delete the adjustment layer as well. There we go. Let me just do another one, and this time I won't mess it up. I'm just going to stick with the default, because I'm going to go in and make the I'm going to go in and use the dodge and burn tool to get the contrast the way I want. Okay, so I might have some contrast issues here, but before I start worrying about those, I've got still, even though I've scaled it down, look at the difference in resolution. Even with the throwing out a lot of pixels, I'm still in sharper focus than the guys on this beam. This was a film camera. I don't know what the speed of the film was, but that would have something to do with it. It would also have to do with how many times this image has been reproduced. The original photograph probably is pretty sharp, but it's kind of hard to say. So it's actually easier to take away quality from an image, which is literally what you're going to probably be doing, is taking away quality rather than putting quality in. And so we can do that with some of the we can do that with some of the filters. I was just noticing I've got a little bit of an issue. If I leave myself this close, my foot is going to overlap this thing right here, and it's gonna screw up the illusion. And I think I'm going to leave it like that just so I can show you, you know, an easy fix for that. But before I do that, with the filters, the first thing I'm going to do is give it a bit of a blur, a Gaussian blur, and sometimes it's hard to find, you know, if this puts the whole layer in there, sometimes it's hard to find it, but you need to just look at your, you know, look at your picture more than at the preview, I think. Make sure preview button is clicked here. I found that 0.8 of a pixel was the right radius for this, but you've got a slider bar down here which will give you a huge, you know, a huge range, right? And I didn't need to do much. I literally just tried it like 1 point at a time until I was happy with my results. That was really all I did to this one, but let me show you a few more things that you can try in the filters. Now for some of these, you need to make sure that you have black as your foreground color. Most of them, that doesn't really matter, but the next one I'm going to show you does. And let me just go into the filter gallery. And if you haven't done this, you need to do it. Now, most of these, of course, are not going to, they're cool looking, but they're not really going to be of much use to you. You may find with some of these that there's a texture. You may also find, photocopy is sometimes pretty cool, but you may also find sometimes that somebody has already gone out there and, you know, figured out a couple of steps, like, you know, to do one filter, apply it, then come and do another filter over the top and apply it, and, you know, do it in a series of steps like that. And usually when I figure something like that out, it's just kind of hit or miss. I keep experimenting with it until I find something I like. But literally every little thing that you want to do in Photoshop, somebody else has already figured it out and created a tutorial for. So if you will just Google it, you know, I want to put a high resolution color photograph into a grainy black and white image, somebody has probably come up with a brilliant, you know, way to use all the different filters, and that might work for you, because yours might not be as easy as mine is. But one of the things I wanted to show you was the halftone pattern. If your picture was printed in a newspaper, really any printed publication, but it's usually more obvious in a newspaper because the dots are bigger, you'll have this halftone pattern, which I guess the halftone would be kind of like the print equivalent to pixels, where the little dots are combined to make the image. And just like pixels, the smaller the dots, the finer the dots, the more high resolution the picture, and the smaller the dots, you know, the blurrier the picture gets. That's not really necessary for me, but I wanted to show it to you. And I also wanted to show you that if you're ever trying to make something look like it's on an old television set, you can try the line one here. Circle is also really, really cool. I don't know what you would use it for, but you know, I really recommend just kind of going in here and trying all of these. Of course, none of these are going to be of much use. I would really think for you, only sketch, or maybe the distort might be good. Let me cancel out of here and go back into the drop down again. Noise. you might, you know, a lot of times you might want to take noise away if you're scanning an old photograph and it's got a bunch of tears on it or something. Then you might want to use the despeckle or dust and scratches or whatever. But in this particular case, you're likely going to be wanting to add noise. I don't really think it's helping much with mine. If I used it at all, I'd probably use it first, and then maybe come and put the blur over the top of it or something. I wonder if I can just do, yeah, it's so sensitive. You might want to just use your up and down arrow to get the increments, because it's really hard to use the slider bar to get it to like not jump around too much. But if I was going to use it, I'd probably use it first and then do like a really, really subtle blur over the top of it. So, you know, you might want to consider that, but I think I'm okay with it just the way it is. The next thing I did was I came in, because if you look, okay, it's gray, it's blurry now, but if you look, it's still different light, right? These guys are in much stronger contrastier light than I was in. The shadows are darker, the highlights are lighter. And instead of, you know, relying on the, instead of letting the, you know, the channel mixer or anything like that do it, I want to just go in with a brush and control the shadows and highlights myself. I'm going to burn in some shadows. You know, I think it makes sense that I probably burn in some shadows on my legs there, since they're kind of underneath the board anyway. Okay, so kind of burn in some shadows, maybe dodge some mid-tones to maybe bring out the skin tones just a little bit, because they really are kind of contrasty just in a couple of areas. And then if you look, I noticed everything that these guys are holding that's white is like really, really white. And so I went ahead and dodged some of the highlights as well. And it mainly affected my drawing and my phone. Because I guess if I wanted to give it a little bit more, I could. I didn't do a very good job there. I'm just trying to do this quickly, but I would much prefer to go in and use the dodge and burn tool with a brush, and instead of trying to do it, you know, to the whole layer. So I'm just going to, I know this doesn't look very good, but I want to show you one last thing. So let me just go ahead and pretend like I'm happy with that, which, you know, of course, in the real world, I wouldn't be. But I want to cover this up right here, where I'm ruining the whole illusion right now, because the principle of overlapping would say, I know that this rope is closer to me than the people are, so why is this person sitting over here on this beam, and then, but the legs overlapping the rope? It doesn't make any sense. And so it's as simple as, you know, cutting out a little piece of the rope. I'm just gonna use, oh, let me go back down to the background here. I'm just gonna use my polygonal lasso tool. I'm just going to do this in a couple of clicks, and I don't even have to be particularly neat about it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to just click a little box. I'm going to copy it, Command C, and then I'm going to I want to come up to the, you know, to the top layer above everything, and I'm going to tell it edit, paste special, paste in place. And what that's going to do is it's going to put it right back where it was, and I don't have to think about anything, except that I did a little bit of a sloppy job there. Okay, so I'm going to have to erase a little bit. I was a little quick too. I got a little overconfident there. There we go. That should work. Okay, so that's about it for this one. Yours might not be as quick and easy as mine. Don't forget that I don't want you going through your old photographs and using a picture that you've already got like I did. I just have way too many things to do, and I'm looking for effort and creativity in these. And if you actually go to the trouble to pose, and in some cases even dress up, I think you're going to find it worth the effort. Okay, so I didn't do as good a job on my second one as I did on my first one, so I'm going to where is my first one? There it is. Whoops. Throw that in the trash. And no, I screwed up. Okay, well, there we go. Okay, leave you with that.